愛。アクア君が信奉する14年前に亡くなったアイドル。兄弟ともども愛に強い執着。心的外傷。実の父親。兄弟が星の精を使用する理由。
Oshi no Ko episode 4, season 2 episode 4. I'm gonna say something crazy, but stick with me, okay? I don't think Oshi no Ko is like the best thing ever. And when it came out, it got like a lot of praise. An anime that I would say is similar, in my opinion, from outside looking in kind of thing, or from inside looking out, however you want to say the saying, is last year I think it was 𝐒𝐿, was the anime 𝐒𝐿, I believe it was, and that like it blew up. And although I see why folks like 𝐒𝐿, it's not a me type of show, but I could definitely understand why people are attracted to it. Oshi no Ko is more my vibe for sure. But even when I covered the original first season, you know, I didn't think it was... I thought it's a good show. And episode 1 of the first season was a masterpiece. I can't hide that. It was a masterpiece. It so much so that, like, it deserves to be, like, studied on how, like they damn near started the season with a full-length movie. It was honestly one of the best things in anime that I've ever seen in my life. Maybe top 20, okay? It's not gonna be number 1, but it definitely deserves to be studied. Like, it was like just a masterful thing. So where I'm getting with that is, after episode 1 and we got through the rest of the season, I ended up at like, this is a good anime, like, you know, strong 7.5, 8 out of 10. When you put everything together. But I can never not say that episode 1 was a 10 out of 10. And throughout my journey with the first season and now into the second season, as we're on episode 4, Oshi no Ko has shown me over and over again on how it can have that moment in time of episode 1. It can shoot up and have those masterful episodes. It wanes down, and it's an ebb and flow. It's a prairie and valley, you know. And I think it goes up to 10, goes down to 6, goes up to 5, or goes up to 8, you know, comes back to 7. And it's prairies and valleys. Episode 4, I think in my opinion, dude, that's all I can share with you is my opinion. In my opinion, I think we're witnessing one of those peaks once again. And episode 4 was just... it was just so good. And I ended the episode with, you know, as Akane was... I mean, she should be a fucking detective. Like, as she was piecing everything together and having that realization, there was moments where her eyes, because, you know, the show very much does the ambition behind the eyes, but her eyes were revealing the stars, and then, like, it would go away, and then it would come back again. Same thing with Aqua. And I was like, holy shit, like, the subtle details that they put into the show, that if you see them, if you notice them, you're like, oh my God, like, it's just that extra... I don't even know how to really describe... like, I'm trying to think of like a better way to describe like food or something. It's like... I don't know what a good metaphor is, but it's just that extra something that takes it to like that extra level. It's like if you're playing a video game and you're having a great time, the story's good, but you decide to do that one little side quest, and that side quest was just like a masterpiece, and it just excelled the game for you. And if you were having an 8 or 9 out of 10 experience, it suddenly was like, yo, this is a 10 out of 10. Because there's one thing that you could have just walked past, you decided to go down, change the game for you. Or like even in real life, like maybe, you know, you had 2 paths in front of you, and one would be like the normal path, but because you decided to take, you know, a left at some random bush, you ended up at this water that had a certain glisten to it that just is all you're going to be able to talk about. Now, to circle that back into Oshi no Ko, it's like the little subtle details in the eyes and the way that they're so expressive, and I mean, frankly, the animation, the art, the little subtle details that if you blink, you miss them. The way that they just make an episode that is great, masterful, or good, great, it just can't be can't be understated, I should say. And you just have to acknowledge, like, it's just so powerful, and it just conveyed the emotion that much more to me. So episode 4 really just follows, you know, it went through a couple of paths. The second or latter half of the show was all about Aqua and him, you know, learning and dealing with emotional acting. And Kana came to him and told him, like, you need to be able to imagine something so horrific, you know, in your life that you can legitimately pull from to emotionally act. And conversely, when you're trying to have the converse emotion, you should think of something that made you really happy. And his happy was Ruby and Kana and Akane and the moments that he shared with in his new life. I was kind of thinking that maybe he would pull a moment, like an emotional moment when he maybe cured or had a successful surgery in his past life. But no, he pulled all from this life, which is a really cool thing to see too. That means that he, you know, his past 30 years or 35 years, whatever it was before, that his happiest moments can be drawn from this life that has had a rough start. But it's immediately overstated by this mental damage that has frankly been done to him. And that damage was seeing his, you know, mother, but at least somebody he cared about, you know, mother figure in this life die in his baby arms, you know, and I would say in his arms, but like in his baby arms. And you can just see how much he truly, truly hates himself and blames himself for her death. Now, in the reality, no matter how much memories you have, there's a limitation to what a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old child can do in that same situation. There's very limited things, and you would I have to imagine in some part of him as being a prior former almost middle-aged man in his former life. You have to think that he understands that he hit those limitations, but he's still holding himself very much accountable for it. And a lot of times that's where some of the strings of the show kind of come undone for me a little bit. In Ruby, I definitely get it. You know, she was a sick child. She was she only lived in the hospital. She was sick, sick her whole life, and her whole life ended extremely early. So maturity and world experience and people experience was very limited. So I definitely always understand how Ruby is immature and acts her age, because she never got to go beyond that. But when it comes to Aqua, he was a successful doctor. He was like middle-aged. I keep saying almost, but he was basically a middle-aged man, So like he lived a full life. So that's where I get in the weeds sometimes about the show, is like, because of that, it's like, well, why are we doing X, Y, or Z? But regardless, going back to the show, I don't want to get too far off track. Going back to this episode was, the emotions that he went through were conveyed very strongly to me. Akane being there for him, I think, is going to get her a lot of brownie points in his eyes. And I think that if she didn't love him before, it's going to be accentuated and ×2 now, knowing what she knows, or at least thinking she knows what she knows until Aqua officially confirms it. I think she's just going to love him harder. And I'm very interested to see how that ends up being. The first half, or the majority of the show, is all centered around the Tokyo Blade show happening, and the manga author coming and viewing a show, and finally the producer getting some balls behind him and just putting it all on the line of, like, and it ended up netting fruit, and she ended up working with the other guy who did the other play that she saw, and they got to a good point and they got a new script. But the most interesting portion definitely came in that latter half. I think I'm about out of time. This episode, 10 out of 10. I felt every emotion. I gasped it was just a really, really good episode of Oshinoko. So those are my feelings. Now I want to know yours. You may feel completely different. If that's the case, let me know in the comments. You may have a comment on one of my things I've said during this video. Let me know that in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your time. Thank you for sticking to the end. Hit like if you're still here, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 5. I'm hyped for next week. Peace.